Hi, this is Sarit Switzer, and welcome to the It Is Taught podcast, a podcast devoted to the teachings of Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi as recorded in his most famous work, the Tanya. My hope for this show is to make these teachings accessible and relatable to the average person, regardless of prior Jewish education or affiliation. The episodes follow the prescribed daily study portions and are meant to serve as practical lessons in how to live your life as your true self and develop an authentic and powerful relationship with your Creator. I have personally experienced the effects the study of this work has had on me, and I'm excited to share what I can of this knowledge with you. So please join me on this journey of learning, self-growth, and connection with your source. Hi, and welcome to the It Is Taught podcast. This is episode 87 for the 16th of Adar Aleph in a leap year. And today we are beginning a new chapter, chapter 30. And this topic today is actually something that really speaks to me in a very profound way. It's sort of like almost like my life philosophy in a lot of ways, at least in terms of how I try to interact with people. So they say, different parts of Torah speak to different people in different ways. For whatever reason, this topic really speaks to me in a very big way. What is the topic? The topic is about being humble before every person and not judging other people and not ever looking down on anybody, regardless of who they are. So it's a really beautiful message, and it's something that really encompasses the entire Tanya in a lot of ways. So if you've been noticing so far, a lot of the theme of the Tanya is really about this idea of being humble and not thinking too highly of yourself. So the entire last chapter really got into this, of really just in terms of our relationship with ourselves, to not mistaken ourselves for being a tzaddik, to really be aware of our flaws and our negative tendencies and all of that stuff. And in fact, the premise of this entire book, and indeed the title of this entire book, which is that it's a book for the intermediate man, the Sefer Shel Beinonim, really points at this idea. So we saw this in the very beginning of the book, where the Alter Rebbe spoke about how we should never see ourselves as a tzaddik, even though maybe this is something that we should strive for, but we should never actually see ourselves as a tzaddik. And if anything, we should see ourselves as a rasha. And so really a lot of what this book is all about is getting rid of our ego and getting rid of thinking too highly of ourselves. So I remember a while back, somebody who was newer to learning Tanya asked me a question and said, I see that the Tanya is really this book about self-growth and getting closer to God and everything like that. But what's not clear to me is, how do you gauge where you're at? Like, how do you know what level you're at? How do you know if you're actually progressing or you're getting closer to God and that kind of thing? And it was a really interesting question to me, because it made me realize that it's sort of like a non-question and it's sort of something that isn't really addressed in the Tanya, because in fact, the focus of the Tanya is really all about forgetting about yourself and forgetting about what level you're at and not being concerned with, I'm at this level, I'm at that level, you're here, you're there, I'm here, there. There's no levels. And if anything, going back to this idea of where we spoke about always thinking of yourself as a beginner or always thinking of yourself as if you could fall, as if you could be a rasha, this is the idea, is that we want to constantly be in the state of like a beginner's mind, so to speak, constantly be in the state of humility. And so in today's focus, the Alter Rebbe really spells it out, that this comes into play with our interactions with other people, and that anytime we encounter anybody, no matter who they are, whether they are someone homeless on the street, whether they are someone you meet on the subway, someone you see who's doing something that in your mind is extremely embarrassing or extremely wrong, whatever it is, no matter who you see, you should always see yourself as humble before them. You should never think of yourself as being better than anybody else. So I think this is just like such a profound and beautiful message. And it's kind of like, I feel like if only we all just really integrated this message into our lives, the world would be such a better place on so many levels. But so let's get into the text of how the Alter Rebbe says it in his words. So here we go. So then the Alter Rebbe says that in addition to everything we've been learning previously about again, our negative tendencies and really not thinking of ourselves of a tzaddik and all those things, a person should really implant it into their heart to fulfill that which the sages taught, that you should be humble of spirit before every man. So this is a verse taken from Pirkei Avos, chapter 4, verse 10. In Hebrew, it's V'hevei shval ruach bifnei kol ha'adam. So again, be lowly of spirit, humble of spirit in front of every person. And the Alter Rebbe says that in truth, this really means in the face of every single person, even the lightest of the light, the simplest kind of people. And then the Alter Rebbe brings another citation from Pirkei Avos, this time from chapter 2, verse 4, where it says, Al tadin et chavercha ad shetagia limkomo, that you should not judge your fellow until you reach their place. So this is a very popular saying, even not in Jewish circles, that don't judge a man until you've walked a mile in their shoes or whatever. And then the Alter Rebbe explains this, and he takes this even deeper. He says, where it says, let's look at it again a little bit more detailed, literally, do not judge your fellow until you reach their place. So why their place? What does that mean, their place? And the Alter Rebbe says it's because it's specifically their place that's causing them to sin. So it's like if a person is sitting at home all day long and they have the luxury of working for themselves, let's say, thank God I work for myself. So I don't have to interact with so many people. I don't have to be out there in the world so much. So it's easy for somebody who works for themselves, who's kind of isolated in their own little space, and they have the luxury to, let's say, learn Torah all day or whatever, be isolated from the world, to not fall into sin. But then when they look at somebody else who's out there in the world, then, okay, yeah, because this person, what do you expect of them? They are walking around the marketplace all day, and this is what they need to do to get a living. They have to be out there in the world. So the Alter Rebbe is saying that, yeah, this is your fellow that we're talking about here is somebody who has to, in order to make a parnasa, in order to make a livelihood, they have to go out into the marketplace all day long, and they have to become one of these people that sit on the corner and they're seeing all kinds of different pleasures and all kinds of different temptations. And when the eye sees, then this causes the heart to desire, and this causes their impulses to burn like a very strong furnace, like a baker's fiery oven, the Alter Rebbe explains it as. And then he cites Hosea, the prophet Hosea, which is in chapter 4, verses 4 and 6, where it says, Hu vo'er ka'esh lehava v'gomel. So it burns like a flaming fire. So basically he's saying it's very natural for somebody who's sitting all day long and they're exposed to all kinds of temptations of the world. Of course, this is going to lead them to have these desires be ignited within them. And this is not the case, says the Alter Rebbe, with somebody who only goes into the marketplace once in a while. And most of the day, he's actually just sitting at home. And even if he does go out to the marketplace sometimes, it could be, so you could say, what do you mean? I have a job, I go out to work. Let's say you are one of those people who's out there in the world a lot. It could be that just your nature is that you're not as heated. So Hashem created people very differently with different natures and with different levels of desire for different things. So just because you are the type of person that when you're exposed to different temptations, they don't tempt you in the same way as somebody else, this doesn't mean you're better than the other person. It just means that Hashem may have created you without such a heated nature. And then this, just to finish off here, this is exactly what the Alter Rebbe says, is he says that the impulses, the yetzer, is not equal for every person. So Hashem, there are some people that have an inclination towards one thing, and other people have an inclination for something else. So Hashem created us all with different kinds of temptations. And what's going to be tempting for me is not going to necessarily be tempting for you. And what's going to be tempting for you is not necessarily be tempting for me. So the basic message is not to judge and to really, really see yourself as being humble before every man. Because even if you see somebody doing something that you would never in your life do, and that you don't understand how they could do something so embarrassing or so sinful or so disgusting or whatever it is, you don't know their situation. You don't know what kinds of temptations and atmospheres and situations brought them to fall into the space of where they are. So that is the message for today. It's pretty simple, but again, I think it's so profound. It speaks to me in such a deep way, and we're going to continue along these lines tomorrow. I'll speak to you then. Thanks for listening to the It Is Taught podcast, hosted by Sarit Switzer. This podcast is dedicated in loving memory of my maternal grandfather, Avraham Yitzchak ben Binyamin HaKohen of blessed memory. Music by Shoshana. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to support the show, please share it with others and subscribe on YouTube, Apple iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And make sure to leave us a 5-star review. To find out more about the It Is Taught project, including more information on my soon-to-be published book, please visit our website, itistaught.com. To catch the latest from me, follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Looking forward to speaking with you tomorrow, and until then, have a great day.